Today we will be going over the third and final video in section 4, creating responsive user interfaces, additional interactivity. We're going to enable inline editing, which means we'll be able to add a description or edit the description of an existing snippet. In order to do this, we will be handling the input events of either the keyboard or the mouse on the various elements, and we will go over modifying the records and have them reflected on the screen. If you remember from our last video, we had added a desk, DESC, inside of our panel body. Okay, this is a new property, and we're going to go ahead and show you what that looks like if we were to display it. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to find one of the existing snippets. We're going to do a find one in the console here, and it looks like the adobe.com link came up. We're going to grab the object ID there, and we're going to do really quickly here, do a snippets.update. By that ID, C_ID, and then we're going to go ahead and add in that ID that's unique to the adobe.com snippet. And then we're going to go ahead and do a set statement, and we're going to set the DESC or the description to, let's say, Adobe Systems, just something nice and generic inside of there. That's the proper name for Adobe. We'll go ahead and put that in there, and this will update the record automatically when it does. You'll notice that the description automatically appeared. So the next step for us is to be able to add that description to each and every snippet that exists or to new snippets. Okay, so we're going to go into our TMPL snippets.html, and we're going to add inside of here a class for DESC inside of here. This will be used as an identifier. It's not for styling purposes. It's going to be used as an identifier so that we can create some events inside of it. There is one little style element that we do need to add, and that's on hover. Okay, so when we hover over, we want to be able to say, hey, you can go ahead and click here, be able to edit the content. So we're going to give it a border radius of 5 pixels just to make it look nice and neat. And then we're going to add a border. And this border, we're going to make it about 2 pixels. We're going to make it gray. And instead of doing solid, let's go ahead and turn that to a dashed instead. Yeah. Because it'll make it look a little bit temporary. Okay, so let's test this out. As we hover over each of the individual snippets, you can see that there's this dashed border, which is an indication that, hey, you can click here and you should be able to edit the content. So now we want to be able to edit that content, right? So let's go back into our file system inside of TMPL snippets.html, and we're going to add an if statement inside of here, an if template. If editing, we want to be able to display something besides just the description. Okay, we'll go ahead and do an else, and because if we're not editing, then obviously we want to display the static description. So we'll go ahead and wrap that inside of the else and a /if at the end. All right, and position that nicely. Okay, now inside of our editing, if this is the record that's being edited, we want to add a text area, and the name really kind of doesn't matter. We'll just go ahead and put it in description because that's exactly what it is. We won't need the ID or the calls, so we'll get rid of that, and then we'll make the rows only about 3. We don't want it to be very, very tall. Okay. Now we're going to add 2 classes, and these classes become important for 2 reasons. First, so that Bootstrap can style properly. That's why we got the form-control. And the next one is as an identifier. So we're going to go ahead and put the identifier of editing inside of there. So if this particular snippet is being edited, then we can identify the text area very easily. We're going to put in the default value, which is the description if it exists inside of there. And now let's rearrange it a little bit to make it a little bit more readable. So we've got our name, we've got our rows, we've got our class, and we've got our value equals desk, DESC. So everything looks like it's in order there. We are now going to add the editing helper because of the if editing condition that we just put in there. We need to add that helper or when it is truly editing. So we're going to go inside of our template.snippet.helpers and add an editing function. And we're going to just simply return inside of here a session variable. So we're going to go ahead and return session.equals, and we're going to put in the current edit. So if the current edit is equal to the ID of this individual record, which we can access through this._ID, then it will return true, and we'll know that we're editing. We'll be able to set that inside of the UI in just a moment here, but that's pretty much all we'll need there. We do want to set up a couple of events, and so we're going to create a new template.snippet snippet.events section. And the first event we're going to use is on the click event. So if we click inside of that description border that comes up, that little, hey, click me here to edit the description that we added with the border on top of it, we're going to go ahead and put in a function call. And inside of there, we're just going to simply set the session variable of current edit equal to the ID of the corresponding snippet. So we're going to do a session.set current edit, and then we're just going to do a this._ID. Now remember, we have that context because we're using Meteor. Okay? Really, really awesome property of Meteor, and something that we're grateful that we can just access like that. So now on each of these individual areas, when we click, we can see that we're editing. And I am now editing each individual section. You notice that the changes aren't sticking yet. That's because we haven't created the event just yet. So let's go ahead and do that too. So inside of our snippet.events, inside of our tmpl snippets.js file, we're going to look for that particular text area. We've got the class name of it as editing, as you recall. So we're going to go ahead and put inside of here, we're going to do a key up. And the reason we're using key up rather than key pressed is so that we can use the escape key as well, so that we can cancel things out. So we're going to do a key up.editing. We're going to add a function or event handler for that. And the first thing we're going to check to see is if it's the escape key. If it's the escape key, we just want to cancel all changes. Okay, and that's really easy to do. All we have to do is just set the session variable of current edit to null. So we're going to do an if key code is equal to 27, which is the escape key. Then we're just going to simply session.set current edit to null. Okay. And then we're just going to return. Now that we've taken care of cancel, we need to take care of submit. Okay, we've got a special key code combination, which is going to be shift enter. Shift enter is going to be our submit, and that means we're going to want to change the description. Okay, so the way that we check for that is first doing the same thing. We're going to check to see if the key code is equal to 13. If it's not equal to 13, which is enter, or if the shift key is not being held down, and we're going to do that by an e.shift key, or more appropriately a not e.shift key, then we're just going to return. So the only way we're going to get to this new section is if the key code is equal to 13, which is enter, and if the shift key is being held down. So we don't have to worry about any if statements. And we're going to just do a simple snippets update, just like we did in the command line. We're going to set the ID equal to this ID. Remember, we have the context because of Meteor, yay Meteor. And we're just going to do a simple set. We're going to set the description or DSC to current target dot value. Okay, straight from the DOM. All right, that should take care of everything. Make sure we have all of our parentheses, everything in place. And then we are going to set the current edit equal to null, which means we're going to cancel out of the editing process. So everything looks in order. We're going to go ahead and make some changes inside of here. We'll test the enter versus shift enter. We'll test the escape key to see if the changes aren't reflected there. And we'll even add a new snippet just for good measure. Okay, and we'll see how incredibly interactive this is. So it looks good. Everything is being saved to the database as appropriate. We're able to get away with very little code in order to do this because of the context that Meteor provides us. So great job. All right, now that everything's been displayed properly in the UI, we want to see what it looks like inside of the database. So we're going to go ahead and open a terminal window into our root project directory. Inside of that project directory, we're going to go ahead and type Meteor shell. This will allow us to run find commands directly on the server. So we're going to go ahead and run a find command. We're going to type snippets.find. We have copied over the owner ID. So we'll paste that right in there. We'll close that off and we'll do a .fetch, hit enter, and there we go. There's our records. Check a couple of them, just spot checking here to see. You got an ID, a description, and an owner. Looks like everything's right in shape with how it should be. Okay, so we're able to add inline editing to our application. Okay, through the use of hover events, through the use of clicks and key presses, we're able to handle those events and render the UI properly for editing mode. We were also able to modify the records and have those instantly reflected in the UI because of the reactive model that Meteors comes with and that we're so familiar with. Our next video is actually section 5, deploying your application, so we can really get going and use this in production. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in section 5.